welcome back to the How I Got Greenlit podcast and YouTube show. As always, I am Sam. I am joined by my co-host, writer and director, Alex. And as you can notice, we have a guest. We have successful producer in Hollywood of real talkie movies, Craig Perry. And we are here to just talk about all things Halloween. And Craig is a really good person to join us on this because he is the producer of two successful horror franchises. One is the Final Destination franchise, and the other, if you look at it, a horror movie, which is teenage sexuality, the American Pie franchise.
I would argue that puberty is a nightmare.
Yes, it's a complete nightmare. So Alex, once again, Alex and Craig, thanks guys for joining us.
Don't forget Cats and Dogs.
Yeah,
that's my nightmare.
Yeah.
Cats, dogs,
which is another movie that Craig did produce.
Dogs and cats living together. Yeah. Thanks for coming, Craig. Craig has been on every season. Craig's our lucky rabbit's foot. He comes in and educates us. And he's been busy of late. We asked him a while ago. He has been shooting the final, not so final destinations.
IP never dies. It's like a zombie movie. It just lives forever.
That's right. And I believe you're prepping the next one.
We are writing the next one with the plans to prep to shoot next summer and release in summer 2027.
Interesting. So
very cool.
Do you guys, I mean, this is sort of a general question.
Sure.
Having never produced a movie, when you're releasing these Final Destination films, are they generally lined up for Halloween? Does it even matter?
They're generally not lined up for Halloween because that's a very crowded 6 weeks leading up to a spooky season. There's just a lot, and because these movies are not cheap to make, they try to carve out a weekend that they can own on their own, which is why we've been February, March, and August. But this last one was May for the first time, just at the top of summer season, which I think delivers such staggering dividends. We're still trying to figure out how that happens. Staggering dividends that I think that we can effectively own that weekend. And when they announce it, when the distribution people say, yes, we can do it, and we producers-wise can say, yeah, we can make it. We'll be able to deliver in that time.
So, there's a question I have about this, and you're literally the perfect person to ask on this. As I was going through, the generic online lists of Halloween movies, I'm realizing, is every horror movie automatically a Halloween movie? Like, do you consider the Final Destination movies to be Halloween movies? Because there can only be one movie called Halloween, right? Like,
for me, there are movies that you can watch during spooky season and the Halloween season, but there are also movies that take place during Halloween, which is this interesting sort of like contextual thing. It's Halloween night or the couple days leading up to Halloween, so usually the ultimate conflict is resolved on Halloween night. But there are also a lot of movies that just have Halloween events in them. I mean, even E.T. has Halloween in it, with kids going around in costumes. Right. So I think About Last Night has a Halloween moment in it. So there are weird concentric rings of Halloween emanating from literally the center of Halloween, the movie. But I would not argue that every movie is a Halloween movie.
Every horror.
It's like Die Hard is a Christmas movie,
it's
a Christmas movie.
By the way, every Shane Black movie is a Christmas movie. It seems like he always puts that in. So I wouldn't mind someone being that signature thing. But
I'm just grateful that people during spooky season watch all kinds of horror movies. So then then Friday, the Final Destination movies can get their due during the spooky season.
And Craig, you and Tony try to do like the 30 days of horror thing where you watch a horror movie a night. Have you participated?
I have forsaken that. My wife hates horror movies with the passion of 1,000 suns, so I can't navigate and negotiate to have 2.5 hour sort of period a day where I am off the grid. That's just I'd be paying that off till the next Halloween. It's not worth it. But I do judge for the Screamfest International Film Festival here in Los Angeles. I've been doing it for 18 years. So I did have to watch 25 horror movies over 6 weeks from all over the world, which is, I think, part of the reason I like the festival is because it's international. So I think that's like when the most wonderful time of the year is for Screamfest. So
Why wasn't it originally like a pagan? I know you said Celtic, but it times out on like sort of the harvest, right? I mean, isn't it?
Well, it was an ancient Celtic festival of Samhain, which you have probably seen referenced in a bunch of movies that are set around Halloween that delve more deeply into the mythology, specifically Halloween 3, which was like anathema to the rest of the
3 more
franchise because
days
it had
of
nothing to do.
Halloween. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So obviously, as it then became like it kind of dovetailed into the Christian observance of All Saints' Day. Later, like the church itself designated November 1st as All Saints' Day to honor saints. I guess maybe isn't going to contradict that sort of a mythology around Samhain. And then All Hallows Eve evolved into Halloween, and then there and away it went. And obviously, there's sort of roots with the modern holiday. Oh yeah, the modern holiday stuff like the idea of wearing costumes to disguise the dead, and of course it became bigger than that, and also to protect themselves from malevolent spirits that might get into them. And they placed carved vegetables with candles out inside the homes, which then the Irish had, I think it was, oh God, Stingy Jack, the legend of Stingy Jack from Ireland. It's like a folktale about a drunken guy who tricks the devil twice, and the devil gave him burning coal to light his way, which he placed inside a carved-out turnip, creating the first jack-o'-lantern, Stingy Jack. And that's the tradition of carving lanterns to warn off Jack's wandering spirit looking for
a drink.
Yeah, and a
Looking
drink.
for a bar.
Have you guys ever seen those pictures of like people doing Halloween like the year 1902 and their costumes? And it's far scarier because all they've got is like a potato sack that they cut like holes in. Like they're not really pretending to be anything other than your nightmare.
It looks like
so
True Detective. Like,
and they have buttons for eyes, which like it's just well, it's sort of this is like when you see old pictures of Easter and the bunny rabbit's expression is like absolutely malevolent. He's going to eat it, and always the children are screaming in mortal terror, sitting on the rabbit's lap.
I was just in New Orleans, and we were in this old restaurant, and there's a lot of ghosts in New Orleans, a lot of those above ground cemeteries. And they had these pictures from like 1890, 1903. It was like the mayor and sort of the town fathers, but they were all dressed up in these elaborate outfits, and that's sort of the carnival, Mardi Gras, this confluence of religious elements that get kind of mixed in with the supernatural or the cultural or superstitious qualities into this sort of mishmash of what is it now? I mean, like take modern Christmas. I mean, the Santa Claus we know, I believe, was created by Coca-Cola as an ad campaign, right?
Yes. Yeah, the visage that we are aware of.
The jolly fellow with the red and white trim, that was from a 1910 like Coca-Cola ad. So it's sort of we're kind of brought to you by M&M Mars, in some aspects of this, but it gets less scary as we go. I don't know if I'm just older or whatever, but like I feel like the homemade, like you said, the burlap sack with 2 holes in it. I mean, it just it's somewhere between.
There's only one Halloween character that gets scarier as you get older, and that's the Grim Reaper. That's the only one.
Because he gets more and more in focus the older you get. It's weird. I don't know how that happens, but
it's like that tone that you can't hear when you're older or whatever. As your ears go.
So I want to ask you guys a question, right? We're gonna do this this little game for a second, but we're here to talk about movies for the most part, and I want to ask you guys, like, in terms of just desert island. It's it's Halloween. You've been keeping a calendar, right? You've been scratching the stick on the sand, and you can ask, you can in your head visualize one horror movie, one Halloween movie for both you guys. I want to know what it is. I'm curious what it would be for you guys.
Ooh.
The one that scared the shit out of me, or like resonated the long,
whatever it is that you're gonna visually pretend to watch in your thirst delusions.
Well, I'm not gonna say Halloween because I don't know whether that is as scary as it was when I was a kid when I watched it. I mean, it holds a special place, but I think there's something more contemporary that captures the feel and the aesthetic. And weirdly, that would be 2019's Trick or Treat. I think that is a really good, solid well-made, scary movie that really captures the essence of what it meant to be a kid on Halloween, the things that scare you as a kid on Halloween. But when looking at it from an older person's perspective, it still resonated with me, but it wasn't because I was a kid watching it. It's because I was grown up being reminded of what it was like to be a kid and have those sensibilities. So I would actually weirdly go there because it is purely 100% about Halloween. And I think it gives a great bridge from my age into how I felt as a kid.
I'm going to go with a little-known Kirk Douglas movie called The Chosen. Has anyone heard of it?
Yep.
No.
So it's not very well known and it's not very good. And to be honest, the thing that terrified me, I didn't see it until years later. When I was a child, I saw the trailer and it was so scary. I think it was like something, I was at a movie I shouldn't have been watching anyway. And so it was like R-rated, trailers. But the trailer, it's because that was the era, Craig, you remember this. It was like between like 72 and 80. There was a lot of devil movie. I think it was on the heels of like Rosemary's Baby. There was like, now the devil's not a baby. Now he's going to be president, or the devil.
The Omen, The Exorcist, Rosemary's Baby.
It was like the devil was coming, and there was
Mark of the Devil in '76.
This was like an apocalyptic one, and I believe it was the thing that freaked me out was a guy was standing near a helicopter and it like decapitated him. And then there was like an image of a guy outside a door and you're in the darkness and the door is like lit from behind. And so, you go to bed as a kid and your parents are still awake. So that light would seep through my door and I'd be like, the chosen's coming for me. It's Kirk Douglas.
This sounds very un-Kirk Douglas.
I'm saying it's 63-year-old Kirk Douglas in an Italian horror movie coming in. Like it's
and then he reached into the cleft in his chin and pulled out a weapon.
You think this is what bought Kirk Douglas his second boat? This is his second boat movie?
It's very obscure, but also like Faces of Death, like things that weren't like easily,
another 1976 classic.
Yeah, I mean, again, like I think it was for me it was Gen X formative time, too young to see horror movies and not really processing them correctly,
Okay, two things. I think that there's a possibility that coming after the turmoil of '68 and the Vietnam War, there was a look towards what is religion doing or not doing to sort of give us salvation. So all these movies are questioning whether there's any value in having a religion if all the terrible things that are happening in the world. So the devil had to be more corporealized. So we had a way to vanquish the evil in the world that we mattered. Because those movies kind of just dissipated, went to more sort of ghostly with Ghost Story and The Changeling. Like they changed into actually.
Ooh, Ghost Story was a fucking scary one. Do you guys remember this? It was Cocoon meets horror. It was all
again, what I'm saying is that's like 1979 to 84 was actually just haunted house movies. Even Poltergeist was 83, but that's after Vietnam, and we were getting into the 80s where we kind of had found some sense of equilibrium, but all the devil stuff was gone.
You know what the most terrifying thing about Cocoon is, by the way? Is I think
Wilford Brimley is younger than me.
You know exactly. That's literally what I was going to say. We're all older than Wilford Brimley at this point.
Yeah.
Yes, my God, who looked like a walrus, like on the beach trying to roll itself back into the ocean, and he was just younger than us. God,
diabetes. I think, Craig, you're onto something. My guess would be going back to the titular movie Halloween. It was the beginning of the guy with a knife in a house, like very grounded, very relatable. It's your house. Like, you had all those crazy Corman movies with the Raven and all that. Then you had, aliens are coming, whatever, like very gothic stuff, Dracula, Wolfman. What late 70s brought us was Friday the 13th and Halloween. And it was just one crazy guy with no prior knowledge of his victims, a la the Zodiac Killer.
I was going to say it's the Zodiac Killer had captured the imagination, and the fact that it could be your neighbor was scarier than it could be a ghost.
Yeah, there's no rhyme or reason. You didn't do anything wrong. You didn't. You
just had curly hair. That's your only sin.
You didn't rebuff the gypsy on the end of at the end of the road. Like there was no sort of tripwire that you fucked up. You know what I mean? The monkey spot, whatever there used to be sort of a sense of Old Testament right and wrong. You got too greedy and now you got to pay, a lot of Twilight Zone sort of justice,
But look at the moral majority taking hold in the early 80s to the 80s. The morality of right and wrong was superimposed because there was an amorality in the late 60s and 70s as people were trying to sort of find a way to accommodate different perspectives, different races, religions. They were trying to figure out what was right and wrong when anything had value. And so the pendulum swung way back and became very
and even like if you remember Creep Show, EC Comics, House of Secrets, all that stuff.
And where did those come to pass? Late 40s, early 50s,
after
the war.
Right after the war.
We've killed millions and millions of people.
Yeah. Well, it was like always right and wrong. Like the victims were always like the guy that cheated on his wife and then the ghost of another like cuckold.
They're all little morality tales.
Yeah. Very, very Rod Serling.
But they were like the nickel dime store books that your kids were not supposed to have. I mean, there was a huge backlash against their even existence.
Yeah.
These are terrible stories of murder. And
you need the Comic Code Authority and you need the Baptist Church and you need and all that stuff. Yeah. I mean, look, a lot of people have argued, and I can see the lines when they pointed out of how like there was so much freedom and so much like social change in the late 60s, early 70s that the other side, was planting the seeds that are now, sort of finding, flowering in terms of we want a Supreme Court that will bring back these laws that changed around then. And we want to get back to the sort of the white male primacy in the culture and all these things. And, there is some validity to it. Craig, who's the boogeyman now? Like, I'm
going to leave that one alone. I'm not going to go anywhere near that. But what I would say, it's interesting you mentioned this. I literally read an article this morning that mentioned that a small town decided to get rid of its Halloween festival because they didn't want to promote evil.
Yeah, always.
So we're getting to that place, to your point, that there has to be a righteousness and an adjudication of right and wrong. And Halloween and what happens on Halloween often seems to be the bearer of that focus and energy, because it is quite literally an exploration of, I won't say evil, but the unknown. It allows you, anything you're afraid of, you can embrace and embody for one night a year.
Again, though, it seems like the last one that scared me because I had no prior knowledge is it was Ethan Hawke as the struggling writer, and he buys a death house. It's a Blumhouse movie. Sinister or Insidious? Sinister. And
they're making another one right now, actually.
Yeah,
it's coming out. I think it's coming out, the second one.
Look, you have to set the table. It's all contextual, right? So I'm in a house alone watching a movie that I really had didn't watch the trailer, didn't watch the poster. I'm just like, oh, okay, Ethan Hawke looked kind of cool. And I sort of sat down. I'm like, okay. And then I was into it. And then it scared the shit out of me because I'm alone in a house, and it's about being alone in a house. And, sometimes that's all you need. I also think that the horror of Halloween and those house movies, even, today, like The Strangers or something, is because of VHS. We're at home watching a tape alone, or maybe you and one other person. And, every creak in the house becomes significant and sinister,
That's a really good point, actually, the VHS thing. I just wanted to say my choice, I'm of the VHS generation. I'm 40. The vast majority
You're
of movies,
a zygote. Look how young you are.
I know. The vast majority of movies I've ever seen in my life, I've seen on VHS. And when I was trying to decide what was going to be, my number one horror pick, I was trying to decide between Leprechaun or The Others. And the reason is that when I used to go to the video store, all the horror movies, like Front Shelf, Blockbuster, they were all Leprechaun type movies. Just like direct,
like Preacher stuff.
Yeah, direct to VHS style stuff. And while my heart said Leprechaun, my brain says The Others. There was something about The Others which I always felt fell nicely in the middle of horror, which is it's not this new type of A24 prestige horror film. At least it wasn't really back then.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
No editorializing at all.
I agree with you, actually. I'm not trying to learn that much from a horror movie, but it also wasn't Leprechaun. I just remember, I didn't grow up a real horror guy. And
well, correct me. This is the Nicole Kidman
movie. Yeah. This was like her big post Tom Cruise divorce movie. Like this was sort of, And now I'm actually of the opinion that like Nicole Kidman is the second Meryl Streep. I think if you go and look at her filmography, it's way deeper than you might expect. And actually,
she takes way more risks than most actresses do.
Right. I mean, have you guys seen Dogville? You want to talk about like a horror film? But yeah, so for me, it's The Others. There's something about that movie I can always go back to. I just think it holds up really well, and nobody talks about it anymore.
I think it's been superseded by other movies that were more fun, that dealt with the same sort of narrative strategies. So that's the one thing that I have learned, and I think it's the reason why Final Destination Bloodlines was a success, is that it was fun. There were so many navel-gazing A24, rooted in trauma, but the trauma that brought you down as rather than gave you a central through line to sort of connect with the story. Right. I am now firmly in the camp of movies still can be fun. It's okay to have a good time at the movies. Otherwise, we're going to be watching them on the couch and cinemas will die.
Yeah, and also I think The Others came out sort of on the bandwagon, the M. Night new model.
Yes, the M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong.
The switch, you know, it's horror-ish, it's thriller-ish, it's generally like creepy and has awesome like sort of atmosphere, but it's not traditionally horror, and it's also got sort of the flip-a-doo ending. And so in a way it almost suffered from that because it was timely and I think it did well, but I also think, at least for me, I put it in that like, oh, it was one of those. And so like once you know the secret, maybe you watch one more time to be like, oh, what were the tells?
Yeah.
You know, and yet, you know, Usual Suspects has that same device, but for some reason I keep going back to that. I guess it's just, you know, a mix of things, but she was very good in that. And it did have it was almost a throwback to Gothic, you know, sort of feelings, big house, rambling house, such.
And it was period too. It was period.
Yeah. I mean, Craig, like I consider Bloodlines is fun. Like to me, like, you know, Alex Garland's like Civil War is like a modern horror movie, you know, just like,
well, okay,
like that.
I don't know whether we want to open this door, but a lot of people say, I'm so excited that, you know, Silence of the Lambs, a horror movie, got a bunch of Oscars. I'm like, it's not a horror movie. It's
was a
thriller.
Yeah.
Exactly. But they need to label that or put it on some shelf that makes sense to them because it's so psychologically twisted that in order for it to be more like a thriller is just about a bad guy and the cops get him. There's a lot more going on in that is quite difficult to absorb and digest. So I think people have made sure that it lived in the horror space, which is the sort of, you know, 99-cent store genre.
I also think that's somebody that it doesn't even get into that side of the street really, and they just all kind of throw it in one bucket.
Correct. Well, it's the 80% of people who don't watch 25 horror movies every 6 months
in 1 month.
No, I have to say though, I do agree that yes, Leprechaun is a modern classic. You are correct because here's I don't want to get too desultory, but why do you think there were so many direct-to-video horror movies?
They made money.
Probably because they made money.
100%
and there were kids like me who I used to go to the Blockbuster, the video store like every other day. It was just like enough. You know, it's such easy access, and you're going purely based off of literally box art.
Yeah.
Like, and you've got, you know, and it took me I think 2 decades to realize that the Leprechaun was also the Ewok. What's his name? Warwick Davis. Also Willow. Like I had no idea because I was a huge Star Wars fan as well. I mean, horror's an interesting genre. Like I totally agree with you about Silence of the Lambs. I don't think there's a single part in Silence of the Lambs where they are trying to scare you.
No, I think it's scary. Here's a terrible idea that
I think it's disturbing, but not scary because it's real life.
It would be a horror movie if there was no FBI. Like if it was just the victims, like if we just stayed with the American Girl sequence and whatever.
I think it would be horrifying, but not a horror movie.
If you just had a killer and victims and like armed in, you know, like
because I think the thing that makes Halloween, again, to go back to our central theme, scary is because there's something seemingly supernatural about the shape. he seemed to be able to disappear and appear and show up where you least expect him. And I feel that's part of why.
By the way, that's what that's what in the script, that's what they called it. It was just.
Oh, I know. That's why I referred to it, because it's and that sort of slight elasticity,
like elemental.
Yeah, it makes you that you can't completely attribute it to a killer.
So then the fog didn't work though.
Then you have like Donald Pleasance saying, "It was pure evil, pure evil." So it's not a human; it's the physicality, the embodiment of evil that is now going after her.
And yet, I wanted to like the fog as much. John Carpenter's follow-up, and it just was not. It was like he tried to make the shape like a cloud, and we were like, "What's wrong with the cloud?" And I mean, I love Pirates, but it just didn't hang together right. I feel like that one would be a cool reboot, just because it was promising but didn't really deliver the way.
If memory serves, he got the chance to make that because he made Halloween 2.
Yeah, correct. I think it was like you get an original. It's and you never know what's going to work and what isn't going to work either.
Oh, believe me, I would have called Final Destination Final Destination if I thought there'd be sequels. What a stupid title! Ridiculous. God.
Well, by the way, Sam, just so you know, like every time I'm on the road and I'm behind any sort of vehicle that looks like it might kill me, I take a picture of it, send it to Craig. He must get like 400.
When I told all my buddies that I was interviewing you, all I got were text messages about ways to kill people. And I was like, "Oh,
you should see my inbox."
And I was like, "I'm not pitching anything to him."
Kills.
No, I guarantee you that the FBI is tracking my inbox. Anytime a video of something terrible happening to somebody, hey, have you seen this baby that fell
decapitation?
And I'm like, no. Oh fuck, I gotta watch.
Do you ever get worried that you're gonna get linked to something that happens in real life? Like that is inspired or just similar to one of your films? Every
one of the events is inspired by real life. They're not made up. They come, it's the other way.
Gotcha.
Wow.
Like an 8-year-old girl who was ground up to her neck in a escalator in India. I mean, there's really awful things that happen. And I think this is one of the reasons why that franchise gets traction, because everyone says, "Oh, it's 1,000,000 to 1 chance that would happen." I'm like, exactly. It's that 1% chance that it might is where this franchise lives. And that's what makes it unnerving, because it might.
Well, let me
probably not.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question, right?
8
Going
inches.
back to sort of the 80s and 90s, I remember boxes of Halloween, boxes of Nightmare on Elm Street, boxes of Hellraiser, right? Like these sort of what I consider to be these iconic sort of character box covers, like literally just like movie posters that I don't think are as prevalent anymore. And for you, Craig, do you consider the Final Destination franchise to be any type of continuation of that sort of type of horror franchise?
I think FD is unique in that the central character, that the continuing character, is invisible. Yeah. And it's sort of whatever you imprint on it when you bring in, which is why I think we have such a successful worldwide footprint, because culturally everyone has an imagination of what death might be wherever they live. So they bring that with them into the theater. So in terms of art, what's really interesting is of the many key art possibilities for FD Bloodlines, the one that we initially loved the most was a very cool A24 styled poster that was super elegant, graphically striking. There was like blood dripping, but in the negative space you see the outlines of the family. It was really cool, and we all loved it. And then like about 48 hours later, we all kind of came to the same conclusion: it's not selling the movie we made. It's just a really cool artistic piece. Cool image, so they decided to completely flip the script and make a big, massive building exploding with a skull in it, and said, "It's a summer movie." Like, I'm not going to question the overlords of marketing.
Well,
and they were right.
Right. It's a hot dog, not Chateaubriand.
Yeah, it's not kielbasa. It's not just a regular hot dog. But I'm not sure whether that. I don't think that this franchise carries the torch as effectively as like a Nightmare on Elm Street could. That Chucky still does.
But I mean,
isn't
yes
Chucky
and no.
postmodern now? Aren't they like?
Yeah, that's what
they've gone all the way back around.
Chucky, And also, even like Freddy was the like, I'm meta and I'm commenting on this shit going on, right? He was like, all the other killers were the shape. And they didn't talk, and there was no words. It was just this silent presence, almost like Jaws with legs, right? It was land sharks galore. And then Freddie came along and was like puns and talking and like almost too much talking, right? So I feel like, Final Destination works because you don't have that character. I mean, yes, kids can't play FD on Halloween, but it also allows it to live forever because it's evergreen, right?
That's I hadn't really thought about this, but like movies, books, TV, any kind of media allows us to go into that world. That's our gateway in to all of these supernatural thrillers, whatever they may be. Halloween is the one day that all those things come into our world because we see people in costume. We have festivals to celebrate them. It's a weird, like,
all at once.
Yeah, like we all agree that this is the one day that all the things that we want to visit when we go watch Nightmare on Elm Street. Now Freddy Krueger could be next to me at the bar having a drink. And he's right there.
And it's also fun. Like you can be Mickey Mouse. There's no horror element.
Or Slutty Nurse.
Slutty Nurse. Or like Decapitated Harry or whatever. And speaking of Decapitated Harry, would in the way that the Murders in the Rue Morgue was the first detective story, right? It was Edgar Allan Poe. We had like a murder and we had the sort of procedural to solve it, right? And that begat Sherlock Holmes and so on. Would you say Headless Horseman is that iconic character but doesn't talk? We can project onto his or its sort of fury and scariness. I mean, what in the quote unquote modern times or American time, Washington Irving and all that.
But we have a jack-o'-lantern, so there's maybe a little stingy Jack showing up in that thing. The first reference to Halloween itself was a poem, I think, in 1795 or something. That's the first actual word, Halloween. And there weren't that many until the 30s. They didn't show up that much until the 19th century, where it really started to be something that people could talk about because it became more and more prevalent.
And even in the last 20 years, a lot of Western Europe now does trick-or-treating.
Right.
It's very recent. I'm like, what? Like, you didn't always have that? They're like, well, we knew you Yanks had Halloween, and then slowly it kind of trickled in, like some people would get dressed up. But this whole, like, give us free candy, knock, knock, trick-or-treat, like that really came in, as our capitalist system, we're indoctrinating the children and, hey, give me money, so.
Well, you got to wonder what percentage of Big Dental is behind Halloween.
Oh, there you go.
Big Coco coming in.
M&M Mars.
Mm-hmm. Sponsored by.
So here's a question then, right? In terms of marketing, right? So you got to assume at some point there are movies that are marketed around Halloween. And we were talking about like, Die Hard's a Christmas movie. The Nightmare Before Christmas is a genius bit of marketing because it can be marketed for Halloween
either way
and Christmas, like either way. Because this was another movie. Again, I'm sort of fascinated by the idea of like, what is a Halloween movie versus what is a horror movie? And it seems like it's 99% horror movies and 1% Halloween specific themed movies.
100%. Yeah. 100%.
And also in that case, Disney really takes advantage of that film. I don't know how well it did in its initial run. I'm sure it did again.
It did fine. I think it was like
I think it did okay, and then the videotape was outstanding and it just became a perennial. But they make over the parks, at least Disneyland. I don't know about Disney World. They'll make over Haunted Mansion to be the Nightmare.
Jack Skellington and the gang.
Yeah, it's themed to him and for from now, like Halloween through Christmas. So they kind of like did what you said, like took advantage of both properties in a way.
That's an interesting thing. Like, what constitutes a horror icon? Because you see some movies that they're trying to, you can feel the flop sweat as they're trying to make a horror icon.
Right.
And yet with Terrifier, you've got Art the Clown, who, even though he's just a clown, and we have had it and other clown movies, that one for some reason, and I think it boils down to design of the clown itself and the performer who does it.
They're really
what I'm saying is same thing. Like, like there have been other clown movies, but none of them have had, I don't think it had the backing of IP from stem to stern.
Way back. I mean, Tim Curry was pretty good.
I would say, could we all agree that Tim Curry is Pennywise, that he is our Pennywise?
He is, but I have a great respect for Alex Skarsgård because I think
very troubling.
That was a very good movie.
Yeah. It was hard to top that. You know what's funny though, guys, is that I'm starting to see this thing. So, our modern properties IP we're talking about, because of the law, the copyright laws, I believe it's 75 years you have an exclusivity to a piece of property or a character. So when they're starting to run out, like the modern film started in the 20s 30s, so now you're seeing like Betty Boop is coming up into public domain, and I think Popeye. And so what's the first thing that happens like the day after is a low budget horror movie based
all
on
the Winnie the Pooh horror movies that have
Winnie
come out
the Pooh. I think Popeye has one, and for some reason they always start out with, well, now Winnie the Pooh's a murderer. Like Craig, maybe you could take us through like why they do that, but it always seems to go that way.
Because it subverts the way the
beloved
character has been
childhood,
used for 100 years. So it's a way in to see, we're going to see Winnie the Pooh being a vicious, like pedophilic murderer. This will be great. But like they even released a movie like recently that was Steamboat Willie.
Yes,
that version of Mouse, but it's like Steamboat Killer or something. I didn't watch it.
Are you sure it's a movie, not a video game? Because there is a video game that was waiting for the day that Mickey Mouse finally became public domain. And it's like an old. It looks like a Steamboat Willie, but it's like a first person shoot 'em up.
Well, I remember Cuphead.
Could be right.
Yeah, it's done just like Cuphead, but it is very clearly like Steamboat Willie and his associated friends.
I would think a porn would want to go more with a Steamboat Willie kind of title. Right?
Look, if you want to go rent Anal Destination, it's available.
Oh, really? So, it's funny. I have a question for you guys as well. Craig, do you have children? Wasn't part of my background.
He is 17 years old. He'll be 18 in December.
Okay. So something I've noticed, I have young kids. I have an 8-year-old and a 3-year-old, is that I like to show them a lot of stuff I grew up on. And something I'm noticing now is children's entertainment is not trying to frighten them at all.
At all.
There is nothing.
It's all about
creepy.
wellness. It doesn't toughen them up. It doesn't like allow them to be afraid so they can recover from it.
Right.
Which gives them resilience.
Which was the Grimm's fairy tale.
I'd give you a hug if you were in this coast. I mean, just.
I mean, like Ring Around the Rosie was from the Black Death, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ashes, they would burn the bodies, right? So there was a sense that little children, they scared the living shit out of them as like lessons. The big bad wolf is essentially don't wander off from the village because they're actually as wolves and they actually will kill you and eat you. So it was almost like news you can use in the form of like a scary tale told at night or whatever. Right. But now by the way, Craig, we've talked about this before. When we grew up, we adopted, and I say we, Gen X, whatever, we were, we watched Johnny Carson, we watched Saturday Night Live, we watched stuff that was too old for us. We knew who like Walter Cronkite was, and JFK's assassination, whatever. We absorbed the media of the boomers, and so kind of just all their cartoons were our cartoons, their reruns were our first.
Because the parents didn't care if we were in the room,
right? But I'm saying the media, the mono media, the mono culture didn't care to market to children. Like the cartoons were short forms as bonus to get you to go see the Disney movie, the Warner Brothers movie at all. And then we just got those as like a package thing that would just be like sort of spit out at us in the afternoon sort of strips, right? So now you're talking about maybe it was Nickelodeon or Disney Channel. They sort of the rise of this kind of specifically for children. It's not for everybody. And here's an adult joke, and I'm going to make a Bugs Bunny talking about transvestite issues or whatever to fool Elmer for the parents, but the kids are just like, oh, he's wearing a dress, whatever. Do you know what I mean? There's no more of these like multi-layered sort of content for all. It's all sort of like siloed to.
Well, it's siloed, and the gulf is massive. Think of it. When I was a kid, I went to see the animated Robin Hood. And then a year later, I went to see Jaws at PG because it was G and PG. That is a massive difference in content.
Yes, it was.
Robin Hood, the animated show, and Jaws with severed legs falling into the water. I mean, I think that by adding PG-13, it further split. Like, we had one more tier of content that made it like become more and more divisive, and now people can be protected. If that like, a PG movie is a Pixar movie. It's something for everybody. A G movie is as soft or faith-based as it can be.
Yeah. Like, I'll give you an example, right? So my daughter, my 3-year-old, I'm trying to scan some to show her because she likes some real garbage, some real terrible stuff. And I'm like, I got to fight with her to get her to watch something I consider to be good, even for her age. And I was like, her name's Dana. I said, Dana, you're going to watch The Last Unicorn right now. Like, I don't care what you say. I'm putting this movie on. And I'm watching her, right? And there are times in that movie when there's this, I call them like creatures designed to give you nightmares that I don't see in the modern entertainment. There's like a big Red Bull that kills unicorns, and it's clearly a creature designed to give children nightmares. And it's just something I don't see anymore. I don't see, I am fucking elbows in children's entertainment right now for my kids, and there's nothing there designed to wake them up in the middle of the night.
Because we have Steve Bannon
as a red fire-breathing bull or bullshitter. I'm not sure.
I think he was I think he's the model for that.
But again,
eating bull.
I think it goes back to the idea that they do not want to have a kid be frightened because they're afraid it's going to cause more damage than good. Whereas I think it's pretty empirically clear that if you allow them to be frightened and then talk them through the fear, you're building out from that so that they become resilient. They can look at something that might be scary, but be able to separate themselves from what makes it scary so they can be able to move on in their life.
And self-soothe.
Skill set. Yeah, self-soothe, exactly.
It's a thing, and
that was alcohol for me. I mean, I don't know.
Tobacco and firearms, right?
So, right.
I think there's something to be said. I mean, the bitching and moaning that I hear from my cohort and older about these goddamn kids, like the hirees of the last 10 years, the millennials into the Y's to the Z's or whatever. It's this like they can't handle stress, they can't handle this, and it's like Craig and I came up in the ashtray hurling era of Hollywood. So as my daughter is now the male clerk at a Hollywood agency, the classic, bottom rung entry level thing, she came home from work and I'm like, how you doing? You okay? You want a martini? What's happening? And she's like, no, it's fine. Love my job. Everybody's cool. They're great.
Puppies. It was great.
Yeah. And they're all like, it's a boutique agency is formed by former CAA survivors. So that, they're like, we're not bringing that toxic culture with us. So maybe there is some hope, everybody made fun of them for being all soft and cuddly and whatever, but maybe they actually did correct some things that people like me and Craig just kind of shrugged our shoulders like, well, this is how it is. We don't have any power. We don't have any agency. We're just going to try to form ourselves. We're going to toughen ourselves up. And, the walk it off generation, as opposed to like, do you need a cold compress and like a therapy session? I don't know what's right. I think some of the things that they've done have corrected sort of the toxic thing, goddamn Me Too and all that. But even just basic decorum in an office, like I'm like, how many people yelled at you? She's like, nobody. In fact, there's one yeller agent and HR really got on top of them. I'm like, Jesus Christ, what?
Look, I spent the last week in Georgia guest lecturing at UGA and GSU. And I will say, and I can say with all candor, that the kids want to be in the business. They think they want to do it, but they have this boundary of wellness and lifestyle. And I have had to say to them,
work-life balance?
Well, yeah. And I've had to say to them, if you have at your age determined what those boundaries are, I give you great credit. And if they're truly important to you, hold them dear. And I will not be mad at you, and nor should anybody else. However, you need to be prepared that whatever opportunity that comes your way, there are about 100 people behind you who will carve your body, husk it out, and use it as a fucking canoe to get across the river to get to the job that you want. So don't be upset when you don't get that job, because they have demonstrated they will work harder for you, and they will not have any restrictions or boundaries that they will adhere to that will prevent them from doing the job that they want.
Yeah, and there is a lot of that. There is a lot of I mean, I know they're outlier events, but the classic tale of like the helicopter mom calling the job interview after the child has the job interview to say, "How dare you not hire my daughter?" I mean, these are real things that happen in the world, you know. So,
and my response would be, "How dare you procreate?" Click.
Well, you know, but Craig, I mean, and this goes, by the way, I will dovetail this back to horror and
Halloween.
Yeah. But latchkey kids were alone. Okay. So I think that the correlation between the killer is in the house, the killer's upstairs, you know, the stranger will calls, anything in a house, very like stripped down. It's a house and a person alone, usually a woman, right? That was because we'd come home to a dark house. We'd make our own food. We'd function. We'd do our own laundry. We'd have to, you know, we'd watch our Brady Bunch and Three's Company or whatever, and we'd do our own laundry and such and so, and the parents would come home later. In some cases, the kids would cook the meal for the family. So it was like we were kind of forced to grow up a little bit. And I think that the horror for us was sort of that isolation horror, right? That no one's coming. The phone's cut off and we got to be scrappy. You know, we got to be Jamie Lee Curtis. There's no hero that's going to come and kick down the door and vanquish the monster. We are what did Obama say? We are the salvation we've been waiting for, or whatever. Where in past days, you know, it was more like, I'm glad the cavalry was coming, right? And we figured out there's no cavalry anymore, right? So these kids now are unfortunately a product of that. We all as a generation were like, we're gonna show our fucking parents how it is, man. We're gonna go to every goddamn soccer practice. We're gonna show up to every goddamn parent teacher conference with bells on and fucking fresh donuts. So we're gonna show them how to parent. And as a result, it was the swing too far the other way. Maybe we were, not cared for as much as we wanted to, but then now we've got these over cared for, over protected, generation, right?
But Alex, I say that you just defined what could be the most iconic horror icon in the future, which is someone's parent.
Helicopter mom Karen.
By the way, I love that.
The most killing off somebody who's in the way of their kid.
By the way, I just watched Cat People. I'd never seen the Schrader Cat People. I'd seen the original one, but all right. So we'll less said of that one, the better. But I do like. I mean, we could say this right now. IP, all rights reserved. Coming soon to you from the maker of Final Destination, Helicopter Mom, and they just show up and they're the teacher's decapitated, and the mean coach is decapitated, like anyone who gets in her way.
So I do have a question for you guys, and it's going to sound like a tangent, but I promise you it's a question. And it's this. I went to film school, and I remember going there and meeting this big fat guy named Ted LaDuca, who ended up becoming my best friend. He only wore Hawaiian t-shirts, and he had long sideburns, and he was obsessed with horror movies. But part of what drew him to them was that they weren't pretentious. He hated anything that even tried to be good, right? If it won an Oscar, not for him. He took great pride in disliking anything that had any pretension to it whatsoever. And we sort of touched on this earlier, and Craig, I wanted to ask you about this because the A24 phenomenon, which really sort of seemed to start with Hereditary, of this prestige horror film, these horror films that seem to be
elevated horror.
They seem to be grasping for Oscars. My question after all of that is, who are these for? Because they're not for my friend Ted. They're not for the horror fans I knew growing up who just loved the Leprechaun style horror.
The answer is simple. They're for horror adjacent people.
Who are they?
People anybody who doesn't see the horror crowd will see any horror movie regardless of what it is. Right. They don't care. They will show up because they will find joy and pleasure even in one scene that is good in an otherwise shitty horror movie, because there's so much content and so little of actual merit and value. So if they can have an opportunity to know that they have a foundational number of people that will show up. If they can make it elevated and it's interesting and it's got good reviews, the people who are on the periphery of the horror crowd who might be horror curious be like, I'll give that a shot. And so they get indoctrinated that way. It's not meant for the horror crowd. It's meant for the people around it.
Or
now,
you
like
count on them, right? You count on the diehards, and
you know the diehards are going to show up, so market to the people who might be on the bubble.
Yeah. Exactly. I
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I also think it's a way, if we were looking at weapons, Craig, and it's like it's a way for interesting emergent filmmakers to get a few bucks to make a movie. But the studio wants a horror. So a studio wants a guaranteed return on investment, and so you get these kind of weaponsy, hereditary, like
look.
They're
Coppola's first movie was a horror movie. All those guys made
Dementia
horror movies.
13. Yes. It's a way in for a lot of people. Still, it will continue to be, I think,
because
so as well.
it demonstrates more filmmaking skill than any other genre. Because it has to be dramatic. You have to be able to work with actors because they're usually operating up against nothing. Yeah. It has to show you understand suspense, camera placement, cinematography, editing. Every discipline in filmmaking is brought to bear in a horror movie.
Yes,
primarily because. And that's why I think, and I would hire anybody from a horror movie to direct any other genre, but I wouldn't necessarily go the other way. I don't know whether a guy who can do a drama is going to be able to come in and do an effective horror movie, because there's something of an understanding of audience response that that's one of the things that the directors of Bloodlines really, I think, verbalize succinctly, is that the director is death in the FD movies, because we are the ones giving all the information. We are death itself as the directors, and they took that mantle with gusto and went for it. And I think that's why horror movies that are well directed are the directors that we remember and that stand the test of time.
Yeah, it's good. It's almost like what a lot of people say they would hire a comedic actor to play a drama, but not necessarily a dramatic actor to play a comedian, right? It's harder to achieve. I want to go back to that the previous point, though. I do believe that in modern horror of the last 5 to 10 years, the mother is becoming the iconic villain. Okay, Barbarian, Weapons. Hereditary, the mom did it, right? And it's usually a variation of the what do they call it? Not the shrew, the hag. It's the mother as hag or spider mother or some
hag horror is an entire subgenre in horror movies.
What is a hag horror film?
Just witches and just
witches. But that found foot. I'm embarrassed. I know.
Blair Witch is a hag.
There's Blair Witch, but that's more witch. Yeah. The found footage movie from 8 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, with the woman who's swallowing the guy's head at the end.
Oh. Yeah,
you know what I'm talking about. I can't believe I'm having
they go to the house and
I'm having a senior moment.
Wasn't Smile like that? Like a weird
a little bit, but also that M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong movie where they go to be with the grandparents.
Yes, old. Well,
yeah.
I don't know. I just maybe that is the helicopter mom, is these sort of matriarchal, murderous kind of scary things. Who knows what?
Speaking of hags, Craig, in your professional opinion, this is a real question. Why don't they ever make banshees, like those flying women who scream and are terrifying? Why are they never in horror films? I never see
because
banshees.
You can get that for free at Thanksgiving. You can get it for free at Thanksgiving. Your aunt's going to be the banshee that you don't want.
You see a million Frankensteins, you see a million witches, you see a million iterations of almost every sort of iconic horror monster, but you never see the flying Irish banshee. It's never a thing. And I always thought that was just sort of for me as a kid, that was, I don't know why, that was always the thing that terrified me, was just these women that would scream at the top of their lungs and explode your brain.
I think that the thing would be scary for people isn't necessarily the banshee screaming, but the transmogrification of someone turning into a banshee.
Right.
There's hidden banshiness.
It's a disease or something.
Yeah. So I think that it's less that I just think someone hasn't found the right way to access the visage of a banshee in a way that wouldn't make people think it was campy.
And also,
really
like, I just think it's part of a large. You've illustrated a larger issue, which is like we don't need another Frankenstein. Respect to Guillermo del Toro at all. We don't need another Frankenstein.
And respect to the Bride of Frankenstein that's coming out with.
Oh, that's right, The Bride.
What's your take on that, Craig? What's your early impression on that one?
I am going to plead the fifth.
It doesn't look. That's what I'm saying. It doesn't look scary. It doesn't look like a horror movie.
The weirdest thing about that is it takes place in 1930s America.
Yeah,
it's like they're trying to make
it's original
Scarface.
Well, no, they're trying to make social commentary about women's rights in that era, right? So like that was like.
I have no issue with all of that. I just think that there's a degree of potential executive malfeasance to spend well over $100 million on that.
Is that how much The Bride was? Get out of town. Oy vey.
Yeah.
Well, even like I looked
that's
at
without marketing.
I looked at Interview with the Vampire, the show, and it's just, I mean, I like New Orleans. I just, I don't know.
Look,
what did you think of Weapons, Craig?
I very much enjoyed Weapons the entire way through. For me, and I know I'm the outlier. Like, look, I'm also someone who hates The Shining. It was never scary to me.
Ooh.
I hate it. I've watched it 3 times, figuring 3 times I'm going to give it another. I still hate it. I hate it. It's boring. It's mannered. It's bullshit. I hate it. Dog shit. I really liked Weapons, but there's one moment in Weapons that for me wobble. They fumbled the football in the end zone. It's when you see the gentleman mowing the lawn at the end when she's Gladys is out running, and then you have the overtly comic beat of the long shot. She's like, as she goes running between the 2 houses. You cut back to the guy who was the boom operator, by the way, and then you cut back to the little kids, and it's funny, but it was so obviously funny.
Yes.
It was so pandering for a laugh that to me, everything else became slightly less horrifying or intense because it was a Benny Hill with blood. It was Benny Hill with blood. I think that what needed to happen is you cut that little shot, which really tipped the balance for me. And then you have one kid get close and Gladys kills that kid and then keeps running. Now there's stakes.
Right.
Now there's jeopardy. You can still have laughter come from the audacity of how it was shot and how relentless those kids are.
Right.
But you haven't tipped into it's just one big joke of, oh, look how gross we are. There's an undercurrent of, oh my God, like psychology hasn't been lost because of the valve of the overt laugh. So that's just me. Look, I'm going to put the crack pipe down before I burn my fingers, but that I really liked everything, but that was a problem for me at the end. I think it tripped on the finish line.
And Blumhouse is having some difficulties. I read an article, right?
Yes, they are. Jason went on The Town and had a very transparent interview about the state of horror, the state of his business, the mistakes that they have made of late, particularly as it had to do with Megan 2, which completely shat the bed. So I'm not speaking out of turn. He said it himself. It's a very good interview. It's really interesting. And I think that they have so saturated the model of the sub $10 million movie with a limited footprint that there are no more ideas, and I think the audiences are hungering for something that feels not as restrictive. Like, oh, let's go to our cabin and go fishing.
Well, it's a haunted swimming pool. I think was a bridge too far, right? And
yes, Night Swim. Yes, yes, as opposed to The Swimmer, which is haunted in its own way, right?
Existentially haunted. Yeah, I mean, Megan. I didn't see Megan number 2, but the first one was certainly seemed more like a comedy to me than a scary at all.
It was bombastic. It was just bombastic. I have a question though, because we've been talking about the DVDs that you would go and get when you were growing up. Those DVDs, you had to actively get your ass over to a video store, debate with your friends which ones to rent. So there, come hell or high water, you were watching that entire goddamn movie because you paid for it, and I spent 45 minutes figuring out which one it's going to be.
Right.
So that investment and of time, you found better movies because the patience to get past minute 25 where things are really clicked in, but now you know all the characters really well. You have a very firm sense of what the world is, so that when they start pulling out the rug, it matters. I think that there's a tyranny of choice happening right now,
Yes.
not just with horror movies, but with the
Everything.
entirety of media. So when you say you didn't see, Megan 2, well, why would you? Because if you're just flipping through it on streaming, you might watch 5 minutes and then you can move on. And when you're confronted with there's 20 new horror movies that are dumped this weekend on all the different streaming platforms, you're just going to watch Friends because it's comfortable, right? It's easy.
Yeah, we know it. It's
We
a
know
proven quantity. Yeah.
So that's the biggest challenge when I am speaking with younger people. And I'm curious, when you're talking to your daughter, who now is confronted with every possible thing to watch, how do you curate for her what has value while also respecting the things that are contemporary that has value for her generation?
Well, for starters, I have yet to see anything for her generation that has any value, but maybe that's just the old person in me
Wow.
talking.
That's the old person.
Well,
Wow.
It's like all she wants to watch is like Vampirina, right? Like these are.
Well, like K-pop Demon Hunters, isn't that a horror movie?
So what I'll say is this, right? For my son who's 8.
Wait, did Craig see? I know you've seen it 10 times.
I've not seen it. No,
okay.
no.
All
I
right.
know everybody I know who's seen it is just like, oh, it's awesome. But it's the awesome where you check your hat, you take your brain out, put it in the dish before you walk in, and thereby have a good time.
Here's
So
what's
keep
funny.
going. Yeah, keep
Talk
going.
about the tyranny of choice, right? So my son who's 8, so a 5-year difference between my kids, and I'm a movie lover, TV lover, so I really curated everything he watched. I was like, I love children's entertainment, so I was good for it. The second kid is the one where you're like, just go watch TV, like just turn on the remote, go watch TV, just go watch whatever. And what's funny is that for my son, who does not have any great love for film or television, he just really could not care less. But I have the sense it will be my daughter, the one who I don't curate for, who will probably develop more of a passion and an interest for it that mirrors mine, because she is the latchkey kid of my 2 children. Even though she's only 3, she's the one I've got to just sit her down and get her out of the way so I can help my son out or parent my son. And I completely understand what you mean by this, like by this tyranny of choice, because I had a much easier time going to the video store, deciding what I was going to watch, and then watching it.
Committing.
Committing than now. And even when I was by myself, a video was an event, right? You got it. It's an event. It's not an event
You
anymore.
paid for it. It was $2.99. You're, God damn it, I'm going to watch the whole thing.
And the phone. I mean, the phone is the biggest. It is the number one thing that movies have to compete against when I'm sitting on my couch. It is just beckoning for me to look at it.
Everything is vying for your entertainment time and dollar.
Yeah.
Everything, which is why marketing costs have skyrocketed, because the only way to break through the noise is to make even more. And that's why the theatrical experience becomes so lopsided, because the marketing costs for a Netflix movie are contingent upon how the algorithm dictates which poster of the content you see, because it's going to be fueled by what color you like and which actor you prefer, because they will redraw the poster so that it is foreground with that actor that you like. And that is true. They create dozens of posters for each title that is specific to. And if I were to look at your portal and the same movie that is mine, totally different marketing campaign.
Well, just to use the nomenclature, the thumbnail on the carousel as opposed to the poster, but yes.
Yeah. Well, I'm old. Fuck off.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like, I'm also reading about how they want to, use the technology to create alternate cuts of movies as going forward, so that the different markets can have more horror, less horror, more lovemaking, less lovemaking, different language choices, whatever.
Is that any different than when they would cut movies for different territories? We got a China release for FD Bloodlines, but we didn't have to cut anything.
So can you talk about that? Actually, I wanted to ask you, Craig, how do the horror movies do overseas? What are the European markets like the Asian markets?
We made like 158 or 148 million dollars internationally alone. I mean, much bigger. Well, it was more people, but the China thing was interesting because Warner Brothers kept it super quiet because they knew they weren't going to get any of the bigger titles in just because of what they did. So they let the Ministry of Culture do what they were going to do, and we didn't have to make any edits. And there are a couple of reasons I think why. There was no sex. Any of the language would have been dubbed anyway, but the killer is supernatural, but we never manifest it in a way they can see it. These movies could be considered one big workplace accident. And
well,
boy,
and they know all about that. Set the table for Sam, because Craig liked one of my scripts from years back, and he said, I think we can adapt. It was set somewhere else, and he said, if you set it in China, I think we can do this and that. So it was a good sort of journey of learning what the cultural ministry allows.
Yeah, like they were like, well, you can't have bandits in the forest. Where I'm like, but literally, Alex, there are literally bandits in the forest.
And they were like, yes, but the People's Army has vanquished all domestic.
Wait, so who tells you that? Like, who tells you that, Craig?
The Chinese government.
Is the government itself?
The Chinese government.
The attaché.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes. And then the people who are engaged in financing and foreign sales, and they're trying to find their way into China and have relationships there, have points of contact who will tell us what can't fly. And when you start to realize at the end, remember when they wanted to have the military there when the train was coming down toward the station at the end to save everybody?
Yes, like, they wanted the People's Army to be the hero. And the bandits in the hills, they thought, well, what can you make them Japanese? Because we hate the Japanese. I'm like, there's no good reason why there'd be hidden Japanese bandits in your hills. That makes no sense. And then, Craig was pulling his hair out on another project because the Communist Party, macro Chinese Communist Party, does not believe in religion. They don't believe in the afterlife. So therefore, no ghosts, no demons, no exorcist, no devil coming. Like the whole other world. That's what he was saying about Final Destination is loosely bad luck. Who knows? But maybe not. Right. But it's not like The Grudge or whatever, all these Korean ones, because other Asian, and let's be honest, the Chinese culture before communism had 10,000 ghosts for everything. There was a spirit for the water and a spirit for the rain and a spirit for this. And so they have to erase all that in sort of the modern memory of the Communist Party. So you have to have a horror movie that basically has no ghosts or no otherworldly elements that can be identified or named.
Which is exactly why it was an unfettered miracle that we got in.
Yeah.
Without any edits. But I do think it's because of the unique nature of Final Destination. It was the first time in 18 years a horror movie had gotten into China, period. Yeah. And even New Line didn't know it had been released in China until after opening weekend. They kept it secret.
I thought just because it was bootlegged. They're like, wait.
They just didn't want to make a big political deal out of it. That's my sort of reading of the tea leaves. And then it
pun intended.
Pushed us to 315 million worldwide. And my favorite thing is the poster. We had it translated and it says, warning, do not see this movie. You have a heart condition or are prone to anxiety. And we got a warning label. Yeah.
Is there a chance that the Chinese government just thought, you know what? This is a great promotion for do not come to America. Like the Final Destination movies are just like, this is what happens in America. You want to move to America.
Here's what I would say though. I think Alex, you referred to there are entire YouTube channels devoted to workplace accidents in China where people are horribly disfigured.
Final Destination Foxconn. I mean, it's
unbelievable the crazy stuff that goes on there.
Yeah.
And it's all recorded.
Yeah.
So I think that they realize, well, we're already there anyway. Let's just sort of make some money off of it. And boy, they did.
Human life is cheap.
Our opening weekend, we were on 22,000 screens just in China.
It's amazing.
So, Craig, if you could see, we'll call it the horror genre. If you could see it go somewhere, if you had a magic wand and you could determine the future of horror cinema, right, in America or internationally, where would you like to see it go? What trends would you like to see get corrected or continue? You know what I mean? Like, what is, for you as someone who's been doing this for a while, how would you like to see it continue?
I think I'd like to see it continue to be fun, but at the same time that there's something that has a little bit of weight to it, just enough that you take it home with you, that it resonates with you on a psychological level, which I think will make it scarier anyway, so it's not like super like Terrifier is like cartoony and quite bloated and almost non-narrative in many ways, and the practical effects are great, but it's doing something different. So I don't necessarily find that scary. It's just kind of gnarly.
Yeah.
Right.
I would love to find something that has the gnarly stuff, but there's just something. That's why I think Weapons did work, because
Yeah.
there was something in it that made that poor kid. You know,
Right.
that whole section was just about how Zach Kreger grew up in an alcoholic family, and he was
He had
just
the
he had to
parents. The
take care of his
parents.
parents.
Yeah. I mean, that was very much like a latchkey sort of.
So there's an
horror.
emotional component to it
Yeah.
that I think if it's underplayed, unlike being overplayed with Hereditary, you underplay it, it actually has more value, and it does follow you out of the theater in a way that you would not expect, while still delivering a good time at the theater, which is what horror movies are best at.
Yeah, and I think that like a Terrifier is almost like you trick or treating and you go to that one like cul-de-sac where all the special effects people live. Like it's very impressive on a technical level, and wow, look at that decapitation and look at all the viscera and such and so. But like then again, Rosemary's Baby has such a sense of dread, and there really isn't. They're not really showing anything. Maybe some yellow eyes and like just the implication of it, but it's just this like. It leaves you truly disturbed. Like, is something like this possible? Is it really happening? Whereas, some of these more, let's say, gory or subgenre, I don't get off on it. It's kind of like I was listening to this interview about Bound, and they were saying they couldn't get, this is back then they were doing a lesbian film noir like Dino De Laurentiis and the Wachowskis, and they couldn't get the clearance for the love scene. They did like 8 different versions of it, and they did something smart. They told the actors, because they were like, well, Dino likes some exploitation, like is he, and this is what he would do. He would shoot a love scene for an American film, and then in Italy he would cut in more nudity that could be believably cut away to. So to put the actors at rest, the Wachowskis just did it in one long sort of descending take. And they're like, we're not going to cut in. You can't cut in. It's got to be one take. So they were doing one take all day. Bill Pope up on a crane, down and up and down and down. And so they said they submitted what they thought was the most sensual take, which was the women were in love and their faces were in bliss. And they were really, they had like fit together as performers and characters, and they were just as a couple, as true love, as like they'd found their partner. And so the MPAA was like NC-17. So then they submitted the like sweaty, grindy, sexual, not about love, just about and they were like R-rated, no problem. And they were like, what the fuck? And you realize like it's that puerile kind of Puritan thing that America's always had, that like, well, lesbians can't be in love, but they can like do stuff to each other.
They can fuck, but
they still have to prefer men. It's like
right.
They don't have to be the number one
They're
choice.
just drunk. It's fine. But like, it's the same
I was
thing.
in college. I was experimenting.
Yeah. And it's like horror that horrifies on a psychological level, as opposed to just shock value, just
okay,
like blood and guts.
Hold on. Like, there's things like, this is a very B movie, but like The Stepfather is a disturbing movie about somebody who literally is like building new families, and when they start to realize that he's not who he is presented, or conversely they are not living up to his very specific expectations, he kills them and moves on like a crustacean getting a new shell as it finds its way through. That's fucked up, because the most scary thing is not knowing the truth about the person you're with.
That you're supposed to trust with your safety, and exactly. Yeah. And it's usually that. I mean, even Hereditary, before it went a little boffo in the last 5 minutes, but like it was really just about the horror of a family, right? A dysfunctional family, crazy mom, absent dad, whatever. Like that's the stuff more relatable, I think, is always going to be work for me. But I mean, we all have those
the Hereditary version, which is just,
I mean, look,
trauma horror. Which,
well, to me, I just thought it was Rosemary's Baby, like for a new generation. Like I was like, it felt like a beat by beat ripoff, and everyone's like, "What's Rosemary's Baby?" And I'm just like, "That's it. I give up."
By the way, I think I want to make it clear, I'm not shitting on Hereditary. I actually didn't dislike Hereditary, but I think that it's not as good as it was perceived
as
to be.
People purported to be.
It was just different at the time.
Yeah.
And so the difference made it distinct. But I think in hindsight, we're all going to say,
No, I think it's good, man. I think it holds up. Whenever you find
but
a
not
weird
to the
looking,
degree that its notoriety was back when it came out.
well, it's I call it the deliverance rule. If you can find a kid that looks weird and touched and just throw them in, like, you're halfway home.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, casting is everything.
So I have a question for you guys. We're talking about trends, and I do feel like, for better or worse, horror's sort of having a moment in the sun in terms of prestige. And we talk about like how Chucky sort of got postmodern. The movie started becoming commentary on itself and its own legacy.
Super gender fluid and queer oriented in a fun way you'd never imagine.
So here's a question in regards to special effects. For me, when I think of horror movies, I think of those early Peter Jackson style films, like really insane, gory, practical effects. And maybe this is already happening somewhere, and I've just yet to see it because I'm not a big horror buff. When are we going to see like somebody say, like, you know what people are clamoring for? Puppet Yoda again, right? Like, which is like something Star Wars realized in terms of when are we going to start to see a movie that's entire selling point is like all of these effects are all practical and people
were made by humans.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
people
I mean, you're
from the
going
prop
to see labels
departments are just
like
running.
Yeah.
I think you're going to see it sooner than later, with the sort of vomiting of AI slop that's going to happen in the next 18 months to 2 years. Okay. I just keep looking at beats from Little Shop of Horrors, you know, and you see that puppet of that plant, and it looks incredible. And it was just the fact that they realized, yes, you shoot it with a bunch of guys, but then you actually speed up the film so that when he's in the frame with it, he's like slightly doing it slow. It was the whole, like the way they figured out how to make that puppet and the articulation of the mouth not feel like it was guys pulling on levers to make it work.
In camera, old school.
Simple and whenever it was in frame, and then otherwise it was a comp.
And even like, the first Dracula was scary.
The problem is cost. It's just the cost to do that, the man hours to pull up. Again, by the way, as a total aside, I showed Videodrome to like 25 college kids 2 days ago.
Nice.
And they were suitably horrified on ways I think they're going to write country western songs about. They didn't know what hit them. We had 2 heads made for Julia, who got her head crushed in the back of the garbage truck, and each head cost between $30,000 and $35,000. And the reason why is that it just takes a lot of time, and that the artistry to go in to lay in every single hair, to have every little birthmark, to make sure the pores feel like they have, you see the sort of textures. That's the cost. And it's one and done. That's why you have to make 2. So you're spending a huge amount of money for a gag, and that doesn't even include the engineering of the gag or the man hours.
Is the pool of craftsmen for practical effects of people you can go to now smaller than ever? Like you talk about time.
That's why Rick Baker left.
They're
Rick
like
Baker tapped out when he realized I can't compete and I don't want to.
Yeah, they're either 8 or 80. And there's good and bad for both of them. There's no hardy middle class in the like practical effects.
It's kind of amazing how people forget that human knowledge and craftsmanship can be lost. People are talking about 2D animation, hand-drawn animated film making. Like, they're not teaching it in school anymore. No one goes to school to learn how to be a motion picture illustrator. And it could be the same for something like practical effects. And it's a shame. And I just... Whoever makes that movie where it's all practical effects, there's going to be a practical effects craftsman. I mean, that's going to be the contract bit of the
Terrifier.
century.
Yeah,
that's what Terrifier did. It just doesn't have the narrative heft
to go with the technical crap. Correct. Yeah, I mean, like, going back to Guillermo del Toro, I mean, he has this massive overall.
Never heard of him.
Well, he's got this Netflix deal, and so he said, they were like, "Hey, let's do animation too." You do animation. He's like, "We're starting a stop motion animation company, you and I." And they're like, "What?" Because they don't want to do that. And he's basically forcing them to hire all his buddies who are going to sit there and do frame by frame, puppets. And I think that's great. I mean, it's kind of coming down to that. The filmmakers that can get away with it will get away with it, at least for a while. And then the first all AI movie that makes $100 million, that'll be the end of that, right? So
look, I don't think there will be an AI movie that makes $100 million, because what does generative AI do? It brings you, it's like, you go, make me a couch. What do you think? I don't like the fabric. Make me another one. What do you think? The difference between AI and a human being and an artist is an artist knows when to stop. An artist knows when it's done. AI has no idea when it's finished. So there's never going to there'll never be a bridge between AI and humans, because humans have to be there to let it know that it should stop generating.
Well, Steve Jobs, what did Steve Jobs say? He's like, they don't know what they want. I think he was quoting Henry
I thought he was
Ford.
going to say, that's not my kid.
You mean Eve Jobs?
Exactly.
Which I think is hilarious.
She's not
on two
mine.
levels.
That's the Steve Jobs line.
Yeah, it's not Adam and Steve. Yeah, I mean, he basically said, he was quoting an earlier, as always, as everything in Steve Jobs, he was quoting an earlier pioneer, but basically he was saying the public doesn't know what it wants until I tell them. And there's something to be said for that. The majority of our audience doesn't know.
But that means that Lifetime Christmas movies will be AI generated, because those are movies.
That's kind of what I'm saying. That are iterative anyway, right?
Yeah, and there's 100 a year.
Yeah,
no one can tell the difference. It won't matter,
and they don't want to know the difference. It's the same reason why
they want to have the same feeling every time. It's like
they want to make McNugget
here in Bangladesh. It's the same. Yeah. I want a burger that tastes the same. However, I think what's going to happen, but that means there's a massive industry with artists and craftsmen who will no longer have work. They won't have jobs, and a tier of actors who will not have work, because they will generate AI actors who will have the same following, that will develop the same following as some of these older actors who used to adorn the People magazine at the dentist office. Now they're in Lifetime
world.
Yeah. So I think that's going to go away. Anytime you see a commercial on a digital commercial online, it's going to be all AI generated. Every voiceover
already happening.
AI, it's already happening. Yeah.
VO.
So, that's the stuff that you can't. But it's when you get to the higher level of entertainment and expectation from entertainment is where I don't think it's going to be quickly that AI will take over the world. It's just going to take a little while, and maybe we can stop it. Maybe we can have a movie.
Is one battle after another a horror movie?
Its returns are horrible, but I don't know whether it's the.
Please, I'll put it this way. This is a good segue. I saw Eddington in the movie theaters, and I hated every second of it. Every second, because
which a lot of people compare.
We are so submerged in news and information that I do not need relevant works of art. They're not necessary for me.
We want escapism.
I don't need it. It's just not. I'm not learning anything new from his interpretation of the now, because I'm getting the now constantly. So something I wanted to say was like, this idea of like, isn't the now a horror movie? It's all well and good to say, but I actually don't want to see the now in a horror movie. It's not necessary, that type of commentary, because if you turn on any station whatsoever, there is a talking head doing commentary on what happened 5 minutes ago.
Right.
And I think, Craig, when you were talking, when I asked you like what kind of horror, trends would you like to see continue, it almost sounds like what you're asking for is a sense of earnestness, right? Like a kind of, something that's not trying to be anything other than a horror film. It's not using horror as a conduit for something else. It's trying. It's not putting. I always say, like,
trying to scare or entertain.
I grew up
not
reading
like comment.
I read comic books, right? I never like it when someone says, who doesn't read comic books, like, oh, like, yeah, that graphic novel, right? I'm like, no, it's a comic book, and there's nothing wrong with that term. Like, it's fine. Right. And whenever I see horror movies sometimes striving for more, you're a producer of real horror films, right? Like, do you ever feel like it's not necessary, that it is a genre worthy of itself?
I'm going to say no, and I'll tell you why. I think the most successful ones definitely adhere to what you just posited. They definitely are fun. They embrace what they are and what the genre can offer. But I do maintain that the ones that have traction, the ones that stick, have something psychological, not allegorical, but psychological. Okay. Yeah. Those I think are those are two SAT words, but they have vastly different meanings. So an allegory is going to be a commentary, which means it's going to probably be pedantic, and I don't want it. But if it's psychological, that's going to resonate with the individual, and it will be, as I mentioned earlier, something that follows you home, like a lost, sick, diseased puppy. And that's, I think, what makes a good horror movie great, is that you don't just leave it in the theater. Now, you might walk in and say, it was fun, I had a great time, but then a day, 2 days, 3 days later, it's still coming up. You're still thinking about it. And that's a mark of success for me of where a horror movie should be, and hopefully where I will be able to take it.
I think that right there is the clip. I think, Alex, I don't know if you have any more questions, but for me, that I think is maybe the strongest point in the last hour and a half. Alex, do you have anything else you want to ask Craig before we let him go?
No, that was great. What scares you, Craig?
My wife. No, I used to think, what scares me? You know what? Here's what's interesting. As I'm getting older, I realize the runway's getting shorter. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't scare me as much. As much as it just makes me realize I have to be judicious with my time and really think about what is it going to mean when I'm gone. Like, I realize all this shit that I've collected, none of it's all going to get thrown in a dumpster. Like, unless I say, hey, take the library of film books and give them to my high school. Right. Otherwise, it's all just going to be returned to the earth as dust. It'll be gone. Which makes me realize I'd rather be remembered for who I was than what I did. There are no luggage racks on a coffin, so let's do the best for everybody around us and make sure that when we're gone, people still have good things to say.
Well, I'll tell you what scares me. Aliens and farmland, and that's why I'm the one person in America who loves Signs. Signs was the scariest movie I've ever seen in the theaters because I'm terrified of aliens and farmland, and I felt like that movie was.
And Louisville Sluggers, yeah.
Well,
I don't know about.
I will say this: that bit where he turns the TV off and you see the alien reflected in the dark TV is one of the great orchestrated.
Exactly. And a great example of like technical expertise. I mean, we can't deny M. Night is a technically expert director.
The entire third act takes place in a basement room with just people pounding on the
walls.
Well,
that would be the weakest part of the movie. But the sequence where Joaquin is watching the birthday found footage video. Yeah. I mean, that one lives on. Like, people who haven't seen that movie know that clip intimately because it's just so well presented. And then you know what you realize after making films for so long is that anything on a film is the reaction of the other character, right? No matter what happens to character A, when a filmmaker doesn't cut to the other person in the room, I'm like, you missed it. Like that it could be comedy, it could be action, it could be horror. That other character's face allows us the ability to process it the way the film wants us to.
Yes, indeed.
So you get your, all you directors out there, get your reaction shots. Yeah. They matter,
Well, with all that, I will say, happy Halloween, gentlemen.
Yes. Happy Halloween.
Thank you. Happy Halloween, everybody.
Once again, this is the How I Got Greenlit podcast. We want to thank Craig Perry for joining us. It was awesome. Really, really fun conversation. Craig, Alex, thanks again. And hopefully we'll get you on next year. Maybe we can make this a tradition. This would be great.
I love it. Like herpes, I will return.
All right. Take it easy, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thanks, Craig.